Who's there indeed? Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mike Cushman, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning with myself, Peter Giblett, and him, Dave Wheeler. Dave.
Hi, thanks for that. Thanks for that intro.
Well, I have to
But
do
where's
my.
the music? Da-da-da-da-da-da. And here is Dave Wheeler.
Yeah. On Spin Legal, we paid some money to get some intro music done. The guy put it a
I did
nice
it.
thing together, really nice package, and it only cost us about $150.
Well, that ain't bad.
But but here a budget doesn't run to that,
Yeah.
unless you got a spare 75, and we can figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so Ontario's proposed drug liability law. This is basically part of Bill 10, which is that um, basically it can hold landlords criminally and financially liable if their properties are used for drug production or trafficking. Now,
Oh, I
no
thought we did
land
this yesterday. Oh,
did we?
I
Don't
thought
know
we
whether
did.
we finished it. I thought we touched upon it and we said we were going to do it today, but
Oh, okay. Let's carry on then.
yeah, yeah. So part of the problems about this is that this could be quite a severe threat. Fines up to $250,000, and especially for organizations like yours, where you're running. If you had, let's say, a drug dealer in one of your properties, it would be tough because it's
Yeah,
tough
I'm
to
pretty
get
sure
them
we
out.
pretty sure we talked about this yesterday. Yeah, and
Yeah,
they have a fine of $250,000. Basically, what they're saying is they're trying to put the heat on landlords to do their due diligence and trying to uh, eradicate drug dealing through um, their buildings. But as I said yesterday, a lot of that drug dealing has to do with people on the low end of society who have drug problems, and they deal what is called survival dealing, which means they sell they sell dope in order to keep their own habit going.
yeah, yeah.
Drug dealer comes and says,
We
"Okay,
did
here
talk. Yeah,
I want $1,000 for this stuff," and you sell 9/10 of it for $1,000. That means you have enough to keep your own habit going. You see, with the final tenth. Yeah, we discussed this yesterday, so I think we should probably not sit too long on it. The fact, though, that some landlords are, and yeah, I described this. We talked about this at length yesterday, so I think we should just move on. Are you there? Are you there, Peter? Hmm.
Here we go.
Here we are back again. Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. As a matter of fact, I told the story about my cousin.
I just had a minor blip. The screens went blip, and my internet went out for a fraction of a second, came back in, then went out again. Anyway,
well.
yeah, we were talking about this yesterday. You were right, and I didn't get rid of it from my story list. But anyway, the point being is that it's made a lot of charitable organizations and many landlords very scared.
Yes, because as I pointed out yesterday, imagine if you had a house and you rented off the upstairs as an apartment, which is very common. How would you know that they were dealing in drugs?
Yeah.
How would you know?
You wouldn't.
Now the pressures we have as nonprofits and stuff is we have people getting into the buildings because it's easy access, even though they have controlled access. Doors open for a long period of time and people get in, and sometimes they have a confederate inside the building.
Yeah.
And they come in, and things like CT cameras and stuff like that in the hallways and stuff, it can help because then the supers can check to see who's in there and who's not and who's whatever.
But you got to be very, very careful because those cameras can only show the public areas.
Yeah, like years ago, I knew my neighbor across the street was dealing in cocaine. Well, it wasn't hard to figure out. I mean, he was a nice guy, he had a nice family and everything, but you would get limousines from the strip joints coming by. They would pick up the strippers at the airports or wherever, and they would come with a limousine. And one of the first stops was my neighbors across the street, where they got their supply of coke.
Yeah,
but without obvious things like how is a landlord supposed to know? But there, on the other hand, many landlords look the other way.
Well, that's true, but also, for example, corporate landlords, don't have a presence in the area even.
Yeah. So anyway, as I said, we talked about it at length yesterday.
All right,
so
let's move on. So Canada's first same-sex marriages made history 20 years ago.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting article. As a matter of fact, apparently the very first so-called legal same-sex marriage happened in Toronto just weeks before it happened in the Netherlands, when a church was able to use a religious a particular way in which to make a legal marriage legal by announcing it several times and making it fully known that the marriage was going to happen. And once they do that and broadcast it enough, and then the people are married, then that is a legal marriage. So they were able to sort of trick the authorities a bit by announcing this marriage was going to happen, and then they had a same-sex marriage or two, one gay couple and one lesbian couple, something like that. But anyway, that's bygone history right now, and the average person is no longer resistant to that kind of idea. Yeah. I personally was against the idea of calling it marriage. I had no trouble with a union of two people, and they're shared, and they should have the legal right to share their benefits in and all that. But to call it a marriage,
the whole question about marriage was because of the question that marriage brought with it. When you're married, your spouse gets the right to your pension funds and things like that, and death benefits on through the marriage, right? I think that was always the big problem that gay couples had, is that many employers did not recognize that kind of stuff. So they they would be, the partner of a person would get cut off as soon as that person died.
Yes, it was a legal thing. Now, I had no problem with at that time. I remember my attitude then. I had no problem with that, except I didn't want to call it marriage, because to me, a marriage was a union that had the potential of bringing children into it.
Yeah.
So as being a legal sort of common law arrangement would be just fine with me, but to call it a marriage didn't sit well with me at that time. I don't care now, but at that time I thought, well, that's not a marriage. That's just two people living together intimately. But I have since changed my mind. I don't care about that anymore. In fact, I know one person at least that is in a legal marriage. But what still throws me, he calls his partner his husband, which, how do you know?
Well, actually, I've known a couple of gay people who are married, and one family, they call each other my wife.
Yeah.
Right. And on the other, they say my partner.
Yeah. So this particular person that I know calls his partner his husband. And I suppose that because I remember there was a gay couple that I was with touring India. They were part of the tour package. It was a small tour. And so there was this gay couple. And I figured out which one was the feminine one, because when we went to a movie, we went to an Indian movie just to see what it was like, and it was a romance kind of thing going on, and there was an intermission, and so all the women were asking the tour guide what was said here, what was said there. They were all really interested in the romance part of it. And he said, at the intermission, I'll tell you, just come over here and I'll answer all your questions. So the one that went and joined all the other women to find out what was going on, I figured, well, that guy must be the wife, because the other guy sat there just like me, kind of bored with all that. And him and I were just kind of bored, but this one, his partner, then dashed over there real quick. And he was the only guy among all the women trying to figure out what the romantic angle was. They needed translation. So I figured, that guy must be the wife. But anyway, so that's just, I don't know, it's just been 20 years since it's been legal. It seems that, I don't know, I suppose everything's going along just dandy now, because these gay and lesbian couples can get together. They can be married and have their own family. I guess they could even adopt kids. I don't know, but
they can. And in fact, actually, one of the things, it's interesting. I read an article in the UK about 10 years ago. Actually, before coming here, I read an article in the UK that was saying that what happened is one lesbian couple and one gay, couple of gay men, they traded sperm, sperm. They did sperm donation and basically got two kids out of the relationship, and one kid went to the ladies and one kid went to the men.
Yeah, it's very it's kind of difficult there. You have two gay men that want a kid, and unfortunately with our attitudes is we think that
we still don't allow that to be adoption very easily. No.
Well, it's also the fact that gay men and abuse and children, you kind of put them together. You don't often hear about a lesbian abusing children, but you quite often hear that gay men abuse children, let's say in the Catholic Church and so on.
Yeah, I don't. You mean like in the Catholic Church scenario?
Yes, and
Yeah,
there when we
I think
find that
that's an aberration.
there was a guy in town, for instance, that abused little boys, and he got away with it for a very long time, and he was gay, but he was pedophile gay.
Yeah. I think that's an aberration, not normality amongst the gay male community.
Yes, but still in the public mind, and
get it.
Yeah, that's where a problem comes in.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a couple of comments. Yeah. So what have they done, casinos and banks, about accepting drug money? Well, yeah. Okay.
Well, that's a big deal. Yeah, that is a big deal. Money laundering through the casinos. Yeah, but we don't have an article on that today.
Yeah. It is a big issue. Okay. Countries' premiers are in Ontario cottage country for a 3-day meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to this article. We had it for yesterday and then it didn't appear for today, but I found it. Yeah, so they're basically gathering in Muskoka for a Tuesday meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney, and the trade talks with the United States are expected to intensify.
Yeah, we're in a real stressful situation right now. We've got all these tariffs lambasting on everything, and in fact, we have another article today about Stellantis being hit very hard with the tariffs.
And the irony there, of course, is that if we bring that Stellantis one up, Stellantis is actually a Dutch manufacturer, but they own Jeep, Dodge, Ram, and a number of other, and probably 50% of their car manufacturing is actually in North America.
Yes, with the Dodge and Jeep and so on.
Yeah.
So anyway, basically the ministries are getting together. They're going to try to determine how to react to the United States. The Western provinces, Alberta and Saskatchewan, are against retaliatory tariffs because right now they're only hit with about 10% on their oil and energy deliveries to the United States, and they don't want that to go up. On the other hand, Ontario is being really hit manufacturing wise, and see the only alternative is to fight back with other tariffs. It's they're going to come up with some sort of strategy. I think we can thank the dear leader Donald J. Trump for getting us together, and this is a thing that has been provinces getting together and arranging trades and talking like this together as a unified nation hasn't happened well for a long time, and so we can thank Trump for doing that. We
need a commitment. We need an absolute commitment coming out of this that all internal tariffs are gone.
Yes, and so we can thank him because that's one of the approaches we can take. We have found how extremely vulnerable we are in the World Trade Network, and we have found how terrible our armed forces are. I read a little bit of a review about our armed forces. Like, we have 1 out of 4 submarines that actually works. Everything is behind the times.
Yeah,
it's just insane how we have neglected our armed forces and that. So we can thank Donald Trump for that, because now we're going to put up to 5% into our our armed forces, which means we'll be able to help our industries, because our industries, a lot of the industries will be directed towards building things for the armed forces. The other thing, of course, he's unified us, and that is a really good thing. By doing what he's done, he's made a stronger country, or will make a stronger country. And right now, as much reluctance as I had to endorsing Carney in any way, I feel at this particular point he's doing his job very well, as in any way I can see it. He's adopted a lot of the common sense conservative attitudes, and he's just gone realistic, and that is what I really like. He has taken the idealism away from government and just put more just realistic ideas into how to govern. And I think that in the long run will be very well. And I think you have members like the Ontario Conservative Party and the Liberal Federal Party working very well together. They have found common place. Rather than look for ideological differences, they find commonality and build a country along that way. So I think we're in a pretty good place, but we still are going to take a rather terrible hit from these tariffs. Sadly, though, it's going to hit the Americans. As I said yesterday, they keep saying, well, we're going to charge Canada 35%. Well, they're not charging Canada 35%. They're charging,
But essentially, the essence of what they're saying here in this BBC Stellantis article about Stellantis is that, well, while Stellantis owns 14 brands of cars, including Alfa Romeo, Maserati, Citroen, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and a few others that are fairly well known, one of the challenges that they've had is this has cost them $300 million in sales because of all the uncertainty that's going on. And for example, exporting of cars from Europe to the US has gone down. For example, Jaguar and Land Rover also are temporarily pausing exports to the US.
Yes, all of that, and so I don't know, the uncertainty. As I've said before, Trump is not a noble man. He's not a man of character. He's not a. If he wanted to do all of this if he really wanted to strengthen the American economy with the use of tariffs, he could have done it in a way that would not upset a whole lot of people worldwide and put them out of work and all of that sort of thing. We find, I don't know, he's just not a man of character. He's not an honorable man.
Yeah.
And this is difficult for us because he is a world leader who is not an honorable man. And
well,
if you don't have the care. Yeah, go ahead.
It's ironic there, Dave. You're saying about Donald Trump not being an honorable man, just as one of our American listeners says good morning.
Yes, I don't know if she would agree with me or not on that one. I don't know if she even thinks of it, but I don't think that he is an honorable man, a man of character, because what he's doing now is upsetting a lot of people worldwide and causing unemployment and uncertainty and that kind of thing, which I believe is needless. I think that he could have done what he needed to do to strengthen the American economy in ways that did not hurt so many people.
Yeah.
And that I believe is what I think Trump will fall from the tree. Basically, the dear leader will be sidelined by others in his administration. As a matter of fact, I put up an article the other day, and I was doing it amusingly. And even though I don't care much at all about Epstein and the Epstein files and all that, and how I think it's a big distraction, I think the fact that people are murmuring about J.D. Vance taking over for Trump somewhere during this cycle, there are rumors that J.D. Vance and Rubio and others that are more wedded to the Project 2025 have pretty much used Trump to have him get into power, and then they will use some means by which to sideline him or even replace him. And now that he has health problems, that may be another excuse. Oddly enough, I read something which I didn't take much didn't give him much credit. It was like J.D. Vance is planning to usurp Trump in somehow during this administration, and so I discounted it. But then when I read an article about J.D. Vance going to visit Rupert Murdoch,
let's talk about
moments before Rupert Murdoch put in an article in the Wall Street Journal about Trump's letter to Epstein, which made Trump look very bad, and how Trump is jumping through hoops trying to change the subject. Basically, I just thought that was kind of amusing. But I do think that Trump can't last because of what he's doing here is just too damaging.
Yeah, interesting that basically Air Force Two came to Butte, Montana, where J.D. Vance is supposed to have actually met with 94-year-old media mogul Murdoch, who's head of News Corp and Fox News and many newspapers around the world.
Yeah, well, he's Murdoch, and that's at the same time Murdoch was publishing that business about Trump sending a kind of a lewd letter to Epstein on his 50th birthday. And this letter is supposed to exist. Trump denies ever making it, says it's a big lie and all that. But in the meantime, while this is going on, J.D. Vance is visiting Murdoch. And that letter was known, to be honest, or that article was known to be on its way to be released. In that article was at that same time, and that article was well known because Trump had asked them not to publish it, but they did anyway. At the same time, J.D. Vance is hanging out with Rupert Murdoch. So, I mean, I thought to myself, well, maybe those silly rumors are true that J.D. Vance is working to sort of sideline his boss. I don't know. I think mostly if Trump is going to fall from the tree, it's because of his economic policies that are upsetting the world too much. And you know, when you're hitting your own allies, you need Japan, you need South Korea, you need Canada, you need the European Union. These are your greatest allies. And if you're, you can fight China, but you can fight China along with the EU, Canada, and those other places. But he's decided to make everybody an enemy. And sadly, that's not going to work.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And so do you think that J.D. Vance is being groomed?
I think I'm not so sure. J.D. Vance is much more complicit with the Project 2025. He was the one that wrote the introduction to it, and Trump claims he never read it, which I don't doubt. I don't think he ever read it because he doesn't read the comic books. You know, that's a little bit above him. You know, so I think those people who are more ideologically driven with Project 2025 have found Trump a convenient way to get themselves into power. And now it's just a matter of how long they can use him before they sideline him. And that I think is a real potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. I think that Trump won't go down without kicking and screaming a lot.
Well, now they've got lots of excuses to work with him. They're going to amplify his health problems, I feel. That might be the reason, or they might, but also it is pointed out by, I don't know, different so-called experts that they can minimize him. This 6-month crescendo is the best he's going to get. Thereafter, they won't. They'll take more control over Trump for the rest of his term. That's a possibility.
I think that's more likely.
Yeah, so that's a possibility where they maneuver around Trump, but we'll see about that. Right now, though, that whole tariff thing is hurting too many people around the world. I mean, putting a huge tariff on a place like Lesotho, like we mentioned this before.
That's largely meaningless.
Yes, it is not a man of character, an honorable man will see that Lesotho has diamonds and certain things that the United States could buy, but also realize that a little tiny country like Lesotho is too poor to buy American merchandise because it's too expensive, aside from maybe some mining equipment. And when you punish a country like that, you know, it like trying to punish a country that grows bananas when you don't grow bananas. So you're going to punish Costa Rica because they sell you bananas, and well, you're going to be punished for selling bananas. We don't have bananas. We want bananas. We're going to buy them. But if we buy them, we're going to punish you.
Yeah.
Because we buy more bananas than we sell anything to you. It's
oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
So anyway, so with our particular, so our premiers, and go back to our premiers and our prime minister getting together, and they're going to pound out some sort of strategies, but we're going to get hit with tariffs one way or another, because that's the means by which the American government believes it can make up for tax cuts and reduce its deficit. But what's never, and as I pointed out yesterday, which is almost never mentioned, and is how much the American people have to pay for that. Because when you get $100 billion from tariffs, that's American people paying them. It's not the foreign producer. Anyway, I think we kind of sort of lashed that out. There's more. There's other stuff here. I think what I want to really bring up before we get into some of the local stories is that 27 of the world's countries have complained vehemently about what's happening in Gaza right now. We're getting images of children starving to death, these human little skeletons. They had one of a 4-year-old kid that had died of malnutrition. You have all these little thin children in the hospitals. They're not getting food. The Israeli government, along with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, is making it very, very difficult for people to get food.
Well, and you put up this article about Pope Leo speaking Sunday about deep sorrow and calling for an end to barbarity and war in the wake of the shelling of the Holy Family Church in Gaza.
Well, that's a different story. So what happened is the Israeli army shelled the the only Catholic church in Gaza, and it killed a couple of people. Now, I listened to the I think it was the Jerusalem Post or something like that, spokesperson talking, and they kind of minimized the whole thing. Says, oh, they were shooting at something else, and part of the shell got ricocheted, or it was a consequence of a different action. They were trying to shoot at somebody else or something else, and they accidentally hit the church, killed 2 people. And then they said, oh, well, the church is not really all that bad. As you can see, the church is not that badly
Well, I haven't seen any
damage.
Yeah.
Well, the roof got knocked down, and they said, well, see, it's not that badly damaged, so it couldn't have been a direct hit.
Yeah.
I think they're missing the point completely. They're firing off these weapons close to where people are trying to shelter and trying to find places of safety. And they disregard that at all. The IDF is out of control. They've been shooting people regularly who are trying to are desperate for food. They are not allowing trucks in, and they're playing games by allowing trucks to go through dangerous territory. In other words, they say, okay, you can take this particular route. The Israeli government, knowing that it's a very dangerous route where the truck will be hijacked by starving people, and so the trucks won't go until they have a safe place in which to transfer their stuff. They're playing games, and Netanyahu is a terrible war criminal who's allowing this. They're supposed to be a democracy, and they're not acting like a democracy whatever. They're not.
Yeah.
Look at all the complaints that came in against the United States in their actions in Iraq. Every time they made a mistake there or killed civilians there, they were under a lot of pressure. But you can multiply that by 100, what's going on in Gaza, and yet the Western countries are cowing to Israel, and I don't understand it.
Well, one of the things that also has to be said is the ministers are condemning Hamas for continuing to hold those hostages that they captured from Israel back 2 years ago.
Well, they're always going to bring that up, aren't they?
Yeah.
But Hamas is not. It is a small part of the Palestinian population. You know, when you're killing kids, they're not exactly Hamas operatives, are they? When they're killing their mothers, they're not exactly Hamas operatives either. A father with a bunch of kids trying to feed his kids is not a Hamas operative. So yeah, Hamas was precipitated this, but all the Hamas leadership's already dead, including Yahya Sinwar. So the rest of them are hiding in tunnels. So why aren't you attacking Hamas in the tunnels instead of attacking the people on the ground?
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that?
Nothing, except that I said it continually. It has to stop. And the West is jelly-backed. And the United States keeps vetoing anything that forces the one country among 200 that objects to this thing coming to ceasefire and allowing Israel and supplying Israel with every kind of bomb it needs over and over and over again to waste whole neighborhoods. I believe that the United States is supposed to be a God-driven country, and they talk about their great religious, their religious country and all that, and God we trust. They are completely godless at this point, and they have to find a way out of this.
All right. Okay. I think let's move on to something local. Welland Fire and Emergency Services responded to the questions about homeless shelters, and they've been out on 33 calls since December.
Yeah, this is a very interesting article because um, there's a homeless shelter in Welland. It opened in December, and already there's been 33 calls from emergency services. The fire department has. So this is a homeless shelter set up to help people, homeless people, and try to help them out and try to establish them in some permanent residences. And
Yeah.
it's worked for some part of it because they've had some of these homeless people have actually established themselves in more permanent residency. So it is a stepping stone. However, the character by which the homeless people are quite often addicts and other things. So we have all kinds of emergency calls there. They're taking up time and resources from the fire department. And what I see here is just another
Well, there's
another
a
piece
number
of okay, go ahead.
I was going to say there's a number of areas which have been of concern. Medical emergencies, fire alarms are where they've just been pulled the fire alarm system, safety concerns like fights and disturbances, substance abuse, drugs related usage, etc., and structural and environmental hazards, which are to do with heating, ventilation, or building safety, which have been of concern to the fire department. Now, I'm guessing the latter is because these were put up hastily.
I think probably a big problem here is the expense of all this. This is
Yeah.
costing the city of Welland a lot of money, and it's taking resources away from the rest of the city. This is going to be used as another argument of where you put people, homeless people, are going to force them into rehabilitation centers. We find that in Alberta, they actually do have a much stronger system where they kind of insist that the homeless people are put into sort of programs and things like that. We have already found that we have a lot of calls to take the homeless people and put them in restricted areas which are controlled, take away their civil rights under the excuse basically that they cannot care for themselves and they are in a situation where they will never be able to get out of the situation they're in, most of them, unless you have much more concentrated efforts to, first of all, constrict their abilities to move around, force them into rehabilitation of one kind or another.
Yeah.
So we've already heard calls of this, even from our own mayor and some of the other local mayors. That,
and of course, the cost you were talking about, the cost factor comes in terms of personnel time. That's for firefighters, paramedics, dispatch operators, vehicle operational costs, medical supplies and equipment use, the administrative overhead. And the potential here is we were talking about 33 calls. For firefighter personnel, estimated cost per call 500 to 1,000. Vehicle operation cost per call 200 to 400. Equipment and supplies 100 to 300. And administrative overhead, that's relatively minor. So potentially per call somewhere between 1,000 and 1,900 per call.
yeah, so it's beginning to cost the city of Welland a lot of money. We find that our own particular homeless places here we have, like on Summer Street and Buchanan Street. If you ever go by the one on Summer Street, the cops are always there.
Yeah.
So the cops are continually there, and which gives weight to the argument that the system is not working.
Actually, I'll have to argue with you.
Go ahead.
I'll have to argue with you. I went past Summer Street the other day, and there were no cops there.
Oh, Okay, and somebody was on holiday then.
Probably it was was unusual because normally the cops are there, as you say. You kind of get used to them, and I was just, whoa, there's no cops.
Every morning I pass by there. Every Monday morning I pass by there, and it's more likely than not that the police are there.
Yeah,
and sometimes several cruisers.
yeah,
There you are taking resources away from the policing resources away from the rest of the city
yeah,
that may need them, and this is a constant thing. So how do we deal with our homeless population when they are so unruly and they cost us so much of our resources? So the idea of taking them and putting them in a restricted area and kind of almost forcing them to become take drug rehabilitation and all other things and try to reintroduce them into society once you sort of potty train them on how to be in society. The problem with drugs, particularly drugs and mental health issues, is that people think differently. That it captures their brain and their mind, and they lose their sense of human dignity. And how do you help them restore that? How do you help them become prosperous or even meaningful members of society? Because right now they are not doing themselves any favors, and they're not doing society any favors. So that is the basis of taking them and forcing them into rehabilitation areas.
yeah.
That's that's against their constitutional rights. But how do you otherwise deal with it? That's the argument.
Yeah, that's a fair question. That's a fair question. Okay, so all of those, Mike says, all those fire calls, overdose calls, establish a cost to the taxpayer. Are those fire calls, overdose calls, etc., to establish a cost to the taxpayer? Okay, so when I talked about cost per thing, I had an ongoing conversation in relation to this thing with the with Copilot AI, and I said, please break it down. Give me an estimated cost, a ballpark estimate cost for these 33 fire department responses to the Ontario Road homeless shelter in Welland. Right, that's what I asked. That's where I got the figures from AI, and all that AI is doing is giving a ballpark figure for costs, and it's probably correct, within a certain percentage, right?
Yes, and as I said before, we started off with a lot of sympathy towards the homeless and addicted, but right now the public attitude is changing. That these are wastrels and offscourings of society.
Yeah,
and that they are a problem, and they are a costly problem, and they upset and scare people in the neighborhoods they go to. And what do you do with them? What do you do with them? And where we started off, we're for 20 years we've been very sympathetic and trying to find resources for them, giving more money to Project Share or other places, the soup kitchen. Pretty soon people are beginning to get a very negative attitude towards the homeless now, where it used to be a sympathetic one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've come to the point of view that I'm not sure anymore that giving money to Project Share is helping to resolve the issue.
Well, the problem, no, but Project Share, of course, covers a lot of different people.
Absolutely, they do. I know, but I'm just saying that I'm coming to the viewpoint that we're getting to a situation where Project Share, having organizations like Project Share is not helping the situation.
No, especially if you go down to Project Share and people are waiting for it to open and they're smoking one cigarette after another and they got a bunch of empties in their back seat. and you think to yourself, well, they're coming here to get food now, or socks or anything like that. So my real worry about this, as I've pointed out many times on this show, is the changing attitudes towards our fellow citizens that happen to be homeless or addicts or whatever. The attitude is changing from one of sympathy to one of anger. And the idea that these are people that can be restored to becoming regular citizens again is changing to the attitude that these are wastrels and offscourings of society, and they never will be any good, and we should treat them with harshness, keep them outside of our city, put them in a shanty town outside the town, leave them there. I don't know.
Somebody still has to feed them.
Yeah, and there are people who say, why should we feed them? Why, there are going to be very harsh attitudes. Some people are saying they're better off to starve to death, get rid of it. I'm serious. People do think that way sometimes.
Oh, I don't doubt that, Dave. I don't doubt that at all. I'm just saying that we end up, and when I said they've got to be fed, that's why they're begging. They're often begging, right, for fun money for feeding.
Never give them money, because the money's going to go to liquor or drugs.
That was always, that's always been my view.
Well, see, I bumped into a homeless guy in St. Catharines a couple of months ago, right? And he's asking me for money for food. I says, well, there's a restaurant right there. I'll go in and buy you something. No, he refused. No, I need the money. I want the money. I says, well, there's a place. You said you were hungry. I'll go and buy you anything you want off that menu.
Yeah.
No, I want the money. I want the money. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, our city council seems to look right through them and continue to vote for expensive real estate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. Affordable homes, housing, and unfortunately, the homeless are growing in number because so many of them can't afford places to live. But
and talking about hotels, one of the next items that we've got on our list is that posh hotel on the old power station.
Yeah. So I'm very glad that the Niagara Parks Commission owns that land, because of our attitudes in Niagara Falls for old buildings is really not, in our heritage is really not well developed. If that old building that's been sitting there for 50 years, a half a century, with it empty, our own Niagara Falls City Council would have allowed the wrecking ball to hit it. Luckily, it's on Niagara Parks Commission land, and finally, private interests have taken interest in it, and they're going to develop it into a hotel and a place for tourists.
And inevitably, when you build a hotel on a property like that, it's going to be high-end, exclusive, exclusive guests, right?
Yes, but it's going to be open to the public, and it's going to have restaurants and stuff like that. And it is a wonderful old building. The person who designed that building was the same person who designed Casa Loma in Toronto. So it's a wonderful neoclassical type of turn of the century building. I think it was built in 1901 or something like that. So it's a wonderful, and it's been sitting slowly, and also it has a history. That's the place by which Red Hill was able to help save the people that were the two guys that were stuck on the barge in 1918. There was no escape for them, and it was a combined effort between American emergency services and Red Hill and others to get those guys off of that barge. So it has a unique history. Plus, it is the very first wholly owned by Canadian power plant. So there's history there. Plus, I don't know, it's just a fabulous building, and it can be used for tourism. So I'm very glad it's being developed. I'm very glad it's going to be open to the public.
Well, especially the ground floor. I'd like to see a lot of that stuff, the old machinery, etc. I'd like to see it cleaned up and be under glass, if you know what I mean. So that
Yes, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to. I imagine they've taken out the old generators already and
undoubtedly many years ago. But I'd like to see some of these sort of things under glass, like, you know, and across the road anyway. There's already that other power station. You know, down the road there's already the other power station, which you went into that tour of a couple of years ago, didn't you?
Yeah, that's that's really cool, and that's already open to the public.
And that's kind of got these little boy press the button things, and you see things going in motion, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I do want to go there and go down the sluice gate and go right down to the outtake, where the tunnels. You can go right down the tunnels where they discharge the water and stuff like that. You can walk right out there, beside the falls, I guess. So it's very interesting. It is something that we needed to do. That was a fabulous old building, and it speaks to the history of the area in a big way. And I'm very glad it's open to the public, but I hope it's open to all of the public and not just the 5-star hotel types. You know, so if you walk by there, you can walk into it and you can sit down and maybe have a coffee or something, and right by the water's edge there.
Yeah. I think it sounds fantastic. But again, in relation to Mike's comments earlier, it doesn't actually resolve the housing crisis.
No, none of that does. None of it does, but that does put a boost to the Niagara Parks Commission and other places where people work. So it helps the economy of the area, at least. There's more jobs. Yeah, but the houses, I think, that Mike was talking about, apartments and that kind of thing, there's not much in the way of affordability out there. That, I think, is the
that has been a consistent problem. That hotel aside, that hotel is actually a fantastic idea, fantastic development. But again, the only way in which it helps our community is by the employment. The way in which it helps our community is by the employment, not the only way. We need to have more people with higher paid jobs, which we don't get through necessarily so much through the tourist sector. But we do also need other new developments that include affordable living.
Yeah, and those are coming. I mean, there's that one on McLeod Road that's going to go up, and that is basically centered on or concentrating on affordable units. I think it's a nonprofit, just like us, Kiwanis. Like, we have 3 buildings in town that are affordable and actually geared towards people who don't have a whole lot of money. The one at Atlantis, we have our Kiwanis Club teams up with March of Dimes to make sure that there's a lot of people who have wheelchair accessibility. Basically, there's a whole bunch of people in the city that are wheelchair bound. I know one that lives in Atlantis. If you don't have a housing place like that is geared toward that, it's pretty hard for them to find a place. So anyway, but that is true. We find ourselves in an odd particular situation where housing starts are not really being picked up at all because people can't afford what's already there. The whole idea is to flood the area with more and more housing to bring the housing cost down, but that hasn't really worked. So what's happened is the builders are left with stuff that's not selling because it's too high in price, and so people can't buy it. so that the plan didn't work, so far.
Yeah,
But
and because they didn't put into place low cost housing in the first place.
yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a continuous problem.
Yeah, it is.
We find the middle class is becoming eroded, and unfortunately, the middle class picks up all the burden for the tax, for the government taxes and so on, and that's becoming a pressure on everyone as well. I don't know. We can go on and on about that, but to get back to the power station, it's going to be very nice. It's going to be open to the public, and it's going to save that building from the wrecking ball. And which I think, if you left it too much longer, they would have to find a reason to sort of demolish it because it might get dangerous.
I'm glad that this is happening to that building. There was never any way that this was going to help solve our housing problem anyway. That was always going to be the answer to it was always going to be a hotel, or
Yeah,
or
a hotel. Yeah, it's concentrated for the tourist industry. It had nothing to do with the housing. That's all Niagara Park's land, and there's never going to be any housing on it except for hotels by agreement between private and the Niagara Parks Commission. Remember, the Niagara Parks Commission owns that land.
Oh yeah, I know. And I think it's a good thing. It's a step in the right direction. We don't want that building falling down.
No, we certainly do not. And they're going to be putting that to use. There is this contrast. You have in a 5-star hotel, and a stone's throw away, you've got a lot of homeless people. So the contrast is there.
Yeah, it is a contrast. It's a contrast we have to live with, but it's also a contrast that, to a certain degree, what, in my view, when the city council approves a project like this, they need to be also approving in tandem a project that deals with affordable housing.
I don't think the city has anything to do with this. I think it's all Niagara Parks Commission.
It's still approved by the city.
I'm not so sure if it's within the governance.
It is within the. It was approved by the city in their development plan, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Basically, Mike is saying there's a huge amount of PCBs in there.
Yeah, that'll have to be worked out.
Yeah, that'll
definitely.
Have to be worked out. Yeah.
All that.
I accept you. If you say so, Mike, I believe it. Because normally when you talk about, you don't talk irresponsibly. So I would tend to believe that.
Yes. Mike's up on this stuff like no one else I know.
Yeah, absolutely. He's educating me every day about this sort of stuff, and hey, I have no other information about there being PCBs here, but I'm sure he's absolutely right.
Well, PCBs are normally put into the transformers, so
yeah.
I don't know how many transformers are in there or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that would have to be, of course, taken care of. In any case, I think we're done for the day.
Yeah, we are.
And even though we've talked about Gaza earlier in the show, I'm going to bring that up again, as I do every day. Do not forget Gaza. It's horrific there. You cannot just keep saying that there's nothing we can do about it, because what Hamas did to the atrocities that Hamas committed and on October, whatever it was, 7th, almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah,
that does not give you the excuse to do what you're doing now.
We're only
58,000 people dead.
Yeah, we're only a short way from that, So yeah.
Now Hamas came in and they were brutal and they killed 1,200 people. But right now, you've killed 58,000, 50 to 1.
Yeah.
Right. Where's your revenge going to end? And the people are starving. 150,000 maimed children or maimed people, including dozens and most of them being children and women. How does that get any kind of, like, haven't you had enough revenge? Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu.